The Pokemon World Championship 2023 is held in Yokohama, Japan, but to get there you need to qualify first by amassing 300 championship points by traveling all over the country or even the globe and competing in tournaments. For more details you can pause the video here, but think of Japan as Victory Road and the championship points as the 8 badges you need to even show up. This is my story of my road to Japan. For my second event of the year, I was headed to Vancouver, Canada. And honestly, the first challenge was literally getting there. My flight got delayed 4 times and I'm a lot further from Vancouver than Orlando, which was my last event. The only reason I went to Vancouver was because it was the only event I could find time for. It's not easy scheduling travel in between classes or work. In the middle, there were tournaments in Melbourne, Australia, Knoxville, Tennessee, Bochum, Germany, and Perth, Australia. Over the last month in these tournaments I missed, people have come up with new strategies and new styles became dominant. But I was gonna stick with what I knew best. Dondozo plus Tatsugiri, my favorite team style. You might remember the core from the last video where I top cut Orlando with the Dozogiri strategy, but this time I added a twist. Poison stalling Glimmora. Glimmora's Toxic Debris ability lets it get up toxic spikes, and the move Mortal Spin is very interesting in doubles because it poisons both Pokemon at once. Combine that with a Protect Dondozo and it becomes a very nasty core that whittles you down before going for the kill. Poison is traditionally not a very common strategy because of opportunity cost. Games are shorter, so you're better off getting damage from attacking than using Toxic and waiting. However, Mortal Spin affecting 2 Pokemon at the same time is extremely intriguing, and a Pokemon like Dondozo has never existed before. I made the decision that this would be a good idea to bring to a tournament. Tomorrow I'll upload a full team report explaining how the team works and the actually pretty long story for why and how I chose my 6th Pokemon. This video is mainly going to be limited to what happened at the event, but just know that poison strategies from Glimmora are a big part of my game, and to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss tomorrow's full inside story of the team itself. The format's changed since my last tournament in Orlando. The way it works now is that you play 9 rounds of Swiss on day 1, and if you're a top player you qualify for day 2. By rule, going 7-2 guarantees you qualify. In day 2 you play 5 rounds of Swiss versus the other day 2 players. Finally, the top 8 from the day 2 players make the top cut, and the 8 top cut players play in a standard knockout bracket. The goal is very simple. You want to go at least 7-2 on day 1. My first 3 rounds were a roller coaster. In all 3 rounds, I lost game 1, but thankfully in all 3 rounds I also won games 2 and 3 to reach an overall record of 3-0. But it was the most fragile 3-0 I've ever had, and I had to slog in every game to barely make it through. Literally all 6 games I won were close, and a little luck here and there, or 1 or 2 decisions here and there, and I could have easily lost. I didn't have the same bite like I did in Orlando, and at this point I was feeling very uncomfortable. I could feel good that I was 3-0, but I wasn't dominating games. On top of that, I was already feeling the mental fatigue. Dondozo games can inherently take longer on average than other playstyles, and each of my matches were 3 games long. That meant there was barely any time in between rounds, and I was playing best of 3 after best of 3 after best of 3. You have to be locked in for every single turn. It's not like a 3-hour exam where you can let your mind drift off for a couple of minutes and come back just as good. Every turn is important, and even a momentary loss in focus can cost you a game. On top of that, I was losing confidence in my team choice. In round 2, I played a team with Palafin and Iron Hands, a core that I expected to see at Vancouver. This core was notably not popular in Orlando. It was a meta adaptation over the past month or so. Dondozo is great. I like its matchups into everything except Palafin and Iron Hands. Palafin runs the move Haze, which removes Dondozo's stat boosts. That's why I have Terra Grass, Terra Blast Dondozo to one-hit KO Palafin before it can use Haze. However, Iron Hands can use Fake Out to stop me from attacking, and then Palafin can use Haze with that opportunity. Haze goes through Protect, and there's nothing I can do about it. There's fundamentally not a lot of ways to get past the Fake Out plus Haze lock on Dondozo. Maybe there are some ideas like Covert Cloak Dozo, but nothing really is worth the while. Instead, I decided to patch it up with Terra Water Fluttermane as a Pokemon that outspeeds Palafin and can resist it. But even with these adjustments, the standard Palafin balanced matchup was very scary for me and I was losing confidence. Dondozo is still a Pokemon that can carry a tournament run, but with the presence of Palafin, it wasn't as good as it was in Orlando. In round 4, I had yet another 3-game series, this time versus the dreaded Palafin balance, again just like in round 2. Each game went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and finally, I lost. It's not a loss I can be too mad about though. I played a tough opponent and the games were extremely close and came down to reads and rolls, and sometimes you get them and sometimes you don't. It was a tough matchup and I played as well as I could have, and I'm not too mad about the result even though I did lose. It's inevitable, you're not going to win every game at every tournament, and I was okay with that. It was another grueling series and I went 3-1 into the lunch break. After the lunch break, I picked up a win versus a fellow Dondozo player to go 4-1, and then in round 6 I was playing Ryan Lucetto, Mr. Canada. I had a good matchup overall, and in game 1 I was about to win with an endgame of Tatsugiri and Glamora versus Arcanine and friends. But inexplicably, I forget that he has a King Gambit in the back. I literally just forgot about it, and I use Icy Wind as he switches it in. I lost focus in a crucial situation and it was a game-losing mistake. The Icy Wind triggers King Gambit's Defiant and it reverse sweeps me. Instead of winning the game, I end up losing to the +2 King Gambit. Then in game 2, I get packed up pretty quickly and I get dropped to 4-2. This was my true man versus self moment. I blundered and now I was on the brink of elimination. I had to win 3 matches in a row now if I wanted to finish 7-2. There was no more room for error. This was very different from my last tournament where I didn't have as many stressful moments. It's a truly awful feeling to travel across a country just to know you're about to throw it all away. And that moment kind of lit a spark in me. Maybe I didn't love my team, maybe there are some matchups that are bad, maybe I wasn't playing at 100%, but maybe that was okay. All of that was in the past. I only needed 3 more wins this tournament and I've already gone 3-0 before. I knew that if I believed in myself, then I could do it. I can manifest the day 2 qualification if I just try hard enough. That was my idea. I washed my face in the poorly designed Vancouver Convention Center bathroom and I headed to the final stretch of day 1. It was now or never. In round 7, I played a dangerous offensive team that could smash me with Pokemon like Terra Flying Acrobatics Roaring Moon or Expanding Force Trick Room Armarouge. Fortunately, I was able to maneuver through the onslaught with my trusty Dondozo. 5-2, 2 more left. In round 8, I played another dreaded Palafin balance, but there was a key difference. His Iron Hands did not have Fake Out. It's a small detail, but that meant he couldn't deny Dondozo from attacking Palafin. It's still tricky because I have to manage stuff like Flare Blitz Arcanine if I turn into a grass type, as well as Terra Flying King Gambit, but I was able to finish the job 2-0 and move up to 6-2. Now there was just one more series left. If I win the last one, I do hit 7-2 and I do guarantee to qualify for the next day. This time I got matched up versus Carson Jones, who was actually a fan of the channel. In fact, the team he was using was built off my last team that I used in Orlando. Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Mousehold, Annihilate. The main difference was that he changed his last 2 Pokemon to Armarouge and Indeedee, and that actually caused big problems for me. My team's way of dealing with Trick Room is to simply use Snarl Arcanine with potentially even Terra Dark depending on the situation. However, versus this particular team, that's incredibly risky because of Defiant Annihilate. If I trigger Annihilate's Defiant, I basically have to go to my unaware Dondozo to stop it. But if I do that, then Annihilate can slowly overpower me with the beat up Rage Fist combo because Rage Fist move power isn't ignored by unaware. On top of that, the Mousehold had baby doll eyes, which made my Dozo even weaker than that. The way that Dondozo versus Dondozo works is that if both get locked into each other, it turns into a timer stall. The goal is to get 1 KO and then lock the position and win off timer because by rule, whoever has more Pokemon wins the game. Alternatively, if you get enough damage on Dondozo itself, then your Dondozo can be their Dondozo. If you start strong, it's easy to convert that to a win. It's a nasty guessing game. If I bring Arcanine into Indeedee Armarouge, I basically win, but if I bring it into Annihilate, I might lose the game. In game 1, he brings Armarouge Indeedee and I do win. But in game 2, he brings Mousehold Annihilate and I lose. It all comes down to this final game. Whoever wins the final game 3 makes it to 7-2. What do? Do I predict the Psychic Spam? Do I try and predict the Annihilate? Do I even have to predict? Do I have a combination of Pokemon that would win no matter what core he goes with? I didn't know the answer to that, but in hindsight I probably did. Instead, I decided to not bring in Arcanine and try and counter lead the Mousehold Annihilate. But then, he brings the Indeedee Armarouge. Now I'm in big trouble. I have to escape somehow. I can't lose here. I need to find something that can get the job done. The raw power of Indeedee Armarouge was going to find a way to get a kill and do enough damage to cripple me. I had to find a way to stop that. I needed to. The odds weren't in my favor, but I had to find some way to beat that core. And I didn't. I failed. I couldn't find a way to stop the Indeedee Armarouge core. It blew up a few key parts of my team and I took too many losses trying to stop it. It was over. My Dondozo would lose to his Dondozo. There was no way I could win, and a few turns later, I lost. 6-3 was my record. My heart sank. I was literally one game away from hitting that 7-2, and I watched as it slipped out of my hands. All the ups and downs of the day just to end up one game short. I didn't hit 7-2, and that was that. Well, almost. Remember when I said that 7-2 guarantees you make day 2? That's absolutely true. But it doesn't mean that's the only way to make day 2. The rule is that you make day 2 if you are 7-2, or if you are top 32, whichever has the greatest number of participants. The way the numbers happen to break down, only 27 people were at least 7-2. That meant 5 people who were 6-3 would make it to day 2. As I found out, I had been playing some of the toughest opponents every round, and I had a really good opponent's win rate because of that. That gave me a tiebreaker advantage versus all the other 6-3 players, and despite all odds, even though I wasn't 7-2, I actually finished at 30th place, good enough to qualify for day 2. Day 2 was going to be an uphill battle. Records carry over, and I was essentially one game behind most everybody else, but at least I was allowed to fight that battle. But perhaps more importantly, I guaranteed at least a top 32 finish, which would lock me in for at least as many points as I had gotten in Orlando, where I also finished top 30. Day 2 started at 7:30 AM, which was effectively 6:30 AM because daylight saving times kicked in on that day. Going 11-3 is basically what you need to make it to top 8, so I had to win every single match. Just like before, I had no room for mistakes. In the first round of day 2, I played Callie Peacock and her Iron Valiant. Dondozo was able to pull through with Terra Grass to avoid the weakness to her choice-banded Flower Trick Meowscarada, and I won 2-0 to win the round. So far so good, I just needed 4 more. In the next round, I played a Rain and Screens team. I had to find a way to outplay the Light Screen Reflect combo. Annihilate can get out of hand if it's behind screens, and I also had to be careful about Palafin just powering through my team with Rains and screen support while also using Haze versus my Dondozo. I lost game 1 because Palafin was able to use Haze versus Dondozo because my Terra Grass Terra Blast didn't knock it out behind Reflect. In game 2, I went with the approach of raw power to try and break through with Terra Electric Pomot. But twice during the game, because of Light Screen and Reflect, Annihilate lived on 1 HP and then proceeded to Drain Punch its health back. So close yet so far, and I lost game 2 and I was officially out. This time for real. I could no longer mathematically make top cut with 4 losses. I played the remaining games for seeding purposes, but I ended up in the 17-32 bracket where I got 60 championship points, just like Orlando, bringing me to a total of 120. It's bittersweet. I did considerably worse than my last tournament, but I got the same amount of points. It's the unsettling feeling of being close but not close enough. I put in a lot of effort, but I didn't get the result I wanted. I'm no stranger to competition, and I know that progress isn't a straight line, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating. In any case, I did get the 60 points for a total of 120. There's 180 left until I qualify for Japan.